Welcome to a brief run-through of the Amigo loan's terms and conditions. These are the borrower terms and conditions. The guarantors are separate. A couple of things which I want to point out to you, which are maybe a little bit less obvious. I'm not going to go through the more obvious stuff. I'm just going to go through some of the things which maybe are less, don't jump out for you as much. Here we have a paragraph starting at any time, which means that if the Bank of England increase what's called the base rate, then Amigo can increase the interest rate they charge you. The critical thing you need to understand here is that means they can also increase the payment they're asking of you. So if you're just able to make the payment, they may and they have the right to increase it if base rates go up. So you need to take that into account. Breaking the agreement. There's one thing which is a little bit unusual. A lot of this is very standard, but you might look at this and say, the guarantor exercises the right to cancel the guarantee and the indemnity. What that means is the guarantor can say they don't want to be your guarantor anymore, I think pretty much at any time. Now that means you are technically in breach of your agreement, and if you're in breach of the agreement, they may close your account and demand immediate payment of your debt. So that means that technically, if the guarantor says they don't want to be your guarantor anymore, you have to pay all the debt at the same time or instantly. That may or may not be what they ask you to do, but they have the right to do that. The bit below that is about court action against both you and the guarantor. Now, it's unclear how often people actually do this, but Amigo definitely do on occasions, and actually to put in the terms and conditions, they have to do it sometimes. Legally, it has to be there. Legally, they have to do it for it to be there. They can do two things against you or your guarantor, one of which is get what's called an attachment of earnings, so they can take a bit of your salary every month, only if the judge says so, and they can get what's called a charging order against your, or more likely your guarantor's property, which means when they sell their property, any funds they got from that would have to go to Amigo first. The thing they're unlikely to do, although it's technically here, is send around the bailiffs, so-called warrant of execution. So those are the types of things which might happen if you and your guarantor don't pay, and they could happen to both of you. I want to talk briefly down here about credit card payment authorities. This is a very open-ended right, or card payment authorities. This is a very open-ended right for the person who has the authority to take money out of your bank account, and also I think out of your bank account. Now, Amigo are asking for two things. They're either asking for you to set up your loan as a continuous payment authority, or asking you to pay by direct debit, but give them a continuous payment authority as the background. They're also saying that they will take if funds aren't available and they try and contact you, then they have the right to take another attempt the next day, and then every third day until the next payment's due. The importance of this means that if the money's not there, you might incur a bank charge, or you might get pushed into an unauthorized overdraft. So that can be very expensive very quickly. The other thing is that if you get a bit of money coming in, it's possible that Amigo will just get it before you have the chance to actually spend it. So you need to be kind of aware of that as well. Moving down a bit, I just want to point this thing out under the amount that the commission's paid to brokers. So if you've come through like a website or you've spoken to someone on the phone, they're a broker, and they may get paid up to 20% of your loan amount. Now that is an astronomical amount of money. So if you borrow $5,000, it might be they could pay $1,000 to the broker. What that really shows is that Amigo are making an awful lot of money. If they can afford to pay away £1,000 from a £5,000 loan, they must be making a lot more than that themselves. Jumping a little bit further down, this changing the terms of your agreement. Basically, this is a very blanket statement. They can pretty much change anything they want to on some very vague grounds. In practice, they're probably unlikely to do anything too bad because they would have to justify it to the FCA. So it looks a bit scary, but I actually wouldn't worry about this clause too much. One thing which I want to point out to you here is repaying the loan early. What they say is that if you make what's called a partial payment, we will first use it to pay any arrears or then apply the payment to reduce the term of your agreement. That's fine, and it's a completely reasonable thing to do. But what that means is that if you are intending for if you're paying more, intending for that to go towards your next payment, and you're not intending to make your next payment, let's say you're on holiday something, so you've got a £100 payment, and you know you're going to be on holiday for the next payment, so you pay £200 now, they won't treat it like that. They will treat it as what's called an overpayment. They'll reduce the amount of your loan, and you still have to make the next payment. You can ask them to treat it as a future payment if you want to, but if you don't ask, they won't do it like that, and then you'll go into arrears when you're in your holiday. Credit reference agencies. One interesting thing here, which I just want to point out, is that they do not use the information to credit score you. Now, the reason is actually they don't particularly care about your credit score. They think it's going to be bad anyway. But you shouldn't therefore take any comfort from the idea that Amigo think that you can pay the loan back, because actually they're not really scoring you. They probably think you can't pay it back, to be honest. The final thing which I just wanted to point out is people use guarantor loans to build a credit history, which is absolutely fine. However, it says here that the CRAs will keep details of the payments you make and any default or failure to keep to the terms, and that other companies will look at that. What that means is that if you make all the payments, that's great, you are building your credit history. But if you're not going to, you'll actually hurt your credit history. So you need to be incredibly honest with yourself about whether you're actually going to make those payments. The rest of the terms and conditions are pretty much standard and nothing particularly which catches my attention. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know at guarantorhub.com. Thank you.